Hey guys, this is Kirob speaking, and in today's little dev update we are going to take another look at what is coming up in Light Campaign v4.2. The major update that other developers would sell as a new game. And you might be asking yourself, Kirob, why, or me rather, why did this take you so long to make this little dev update? That's a very valid and fair question. For the last 5 weeks I've been wanting to do one, and I was sick twice, continued working though, not fun, but then when I wasn't sick there was no build to actually take a look at, which was working as intended. This one isn't fully either, but we are going to soldier through that, and what we are going to take a look at today is just get you another good overview, but also we are going to take a look at the turbos finally. So yes, let's jump into that. So the first topic is indeed just take a look at the turbos, and no, they don't have the new calculations hooked in yet, and the new calculations haven't been made yet, but I'm going to show you the new UI that has been designed for it, and of course also some visuals. No, this is not a turbo. Turbo severely lacking, but what you will be seeing is something else that I also want to show you. So let's do that first while we are still on the natural aspirated side here. So as you can see there, that is a very compact intake, don't you think? It's a very compact and rather shit intake, to be fair. And yes, let's. You see, all kinds of things have changed here. Like this part, we're going to get to those things. And no, this is not fun. So let's just once again. It has been weeks after all. It has been many weeks or even months since you've seen that last. Let's do another little comparison here for this kind of eco engine we have made here. Eco V6. Not so eco, but yeah, no, 21%. No, that's pretty solid. So yes, standard intake and so on. We can. Oh, look at the beauties. Look at the beauties. From compact, we go to standard low, and that is not a necessarily cheap intake, but it is one that is optimized for low-end performance. So very long runners, as you need in order to get the optimum out of some of your resonances. And when you take a look at the torque curve compared to the compact one, you see that yeah, you do get a nice boost in that low-ish mid-segment below 4,000 RPM basically. Also depends on engine size, all that is implemented, and now the art is in there too, of course. So standard mid, quite a bit shorter, but still a little performance-y. As you can see, this shifts the focus further up, and we've looked at this before a few dev updates ago, so I'm not going to go in super detail about these. Just going to show you the art. This is for a V6, in case you didn't see that, or I haven't said that before. Variable, we did look at that before. So this is by activating either the long runner or the short runner, and then switching between them at the optimal point, and that is just overall superior. And then we have performance mid, which gives you this nice mid-range 4,000 to 6,000-ish boost, and that is not looking too different at the moment. Performance high, ooh, oh yes. Yes, there we're talking. Now this looks a lot more high performance, and that is boosting an area of this chart which doesn't exist, which is centered around 8,000, and of course, race, yeah, and then yay, up there. No, not there, but like at 9,000, 10,000, 11,000. And that is looking like this at the moment. So yes, you do get all the new artwork for the different intake types, but this is not what you came here for, is it? Well, partially it is, I guess. What you did come for was this stuff. So, look at this. We do have our little V6 sitting there, and this is the new Turbo UI that we have devised and implemented to some extent already. Turbocharger, single turbo. Not all the configurations are fully implemented yet, so take some of those art assets with a grain of salt for sure. Let's also get rid of some of the glow. I think Andrew left them on for testing purposes to see which materials it still needs to set. So some of this art will be a little messy. So just take that into account. But the gist is what counts. So we do, of course, have our single turbo setup, our good old twin turbo, but then we also have sequential turbo. Yes, 2 turbos on one side, and both sides feeding into that one side. Yes, pretty nifty that, and the new UI is working the following way. It is compatible to the superchargers being added in 5.0 as well, which you will of course like to hear. Why do we still get that question so often? I don't know. It's like, where are superchargers? Yes, they're coming. Still, after how many years? 8 years maybe? I don't know, but finally they will be coming. So, let's take a look at how this UI is set up. First, for the simple turbocharger, single or twin, you only have one stage of forced induction, which is the turbo. And within that stage, you can have several turbos. For instance, if we switch over to a little V16 like this, then you will have different options here. For instance, quad turbo parallel. This art might be a little fucked, but it's neither here nor there. As you can see, there are 4 turbos on this beast, and let's just get rid of the arrows here as well. We know it doesn't fit anyway. Like this, and then there's, as you can see here, the sizing is already hooked up as well. This is just one stage, of course, quad turbo, but one stage. So you're basically, what you're doing is have 1 turbo per 4 cylinders. It seems all right, pretty standard. You can make them pretty beastly. So in case you want to break those 10,000 horsepower, that's probably how you're going to achieve that. But who doesn't want to have a V16 with turbos of this size? I mean, if you require a microscope, then I understand why, but yes, the size limits here have not been set yet. But what are these settings? Well, for turbos, it will be the overall turbo size. We are no longer going to have compressor size and turbine size separately, because in practice, you can, while you have access to determining AR ratio, you can get away with a lot of things there with just a single size, and it doesn't fit anyway. So we had to boil that down to the essential, which is 1 size slider, and that is scaling within a good ratio. It's about, you have one being about 10 to 15% larger than the other, so and that is pretty consistent for all the lots and lots of turbo data I've looked at. So in here you will be getting a wide range of sizes once again. They are not yet limited by the configuration, but one thing that I need to show you here is that yes, you are getting a wide range of sizes, which will be limited by what actually fits. As you can see that if I drag it all the way there, it definitely does not really fit. Well, that kinda. Well, the turbos are going into each other. That's not nice. You will like to, or rather love to see this. This is the short cast version, and this is the log version. So, do you see what we... If you remember what we promised, though, we promised you a header which was a tubular one. And I can confirm that that is going to come. So you're not only going to have 2 turbo headers, but rather 3. So a really shitty one for your eco shitboxes and stuff where you don't want to waste any money on any performance at all. Then the short cast already making it pretty nicely laid out for larger turbos. Not that large, no. And then proper kind of racy or very sporty setup with tubular headers. Those are going to be added last, I believe, so I can't show you those just yet. Then we have the AR slider, AR ratio, and we have the boost slider, because boost is good. And that, of course, is the boost limit. That's not how much boost you magically produce. Also, each stage has its own setup. Standard geometry turbo, twin scroll and variable geometry if you want to go real fancy. And of course our old setting for journal bearings or ball bearings. Now let's take a look at a more complicated setup. How about a quad turbo in a different way? Look at this beauty. Look at this beauty. I need to actually focus there as well. Come on, go down. Yes, so you can see it a little better here. Alright, yes, this is of course still not quite fitting and stuff, but we do have the two-stage turbo right there. Isn't that beautiful? So you can just add a stage to it. And of course this one is at the other side as well. So quad turbo but sequential. So it's going to this hopefully smaller turbo first, which helps you spool the bigger turbo, which you can then make massive. Not that massive. No, Kiro, not that massive. You need tubular headers for this. You don't have them yet. So you have a two-stage turbo, which where the first one is being spooled first, and once that really kicks in, and then the larger one is spooled as well and gives you that high-end boost, which you would never reach without that single turbo first if you are going for a really sporty setup. If you're going for a more economical setup, or, well, name me economy cars with a sequential turbo. I don't think you will find many. Maybe on the diesel side, that might be entirely possible. But yeah, I would be surprised if there was any on the petrol side. So yeah, what you're going to get there would be, of course, that you can have a tiny turbo first that really fills in that gap, that spools at like 1,200 RPM or whatever. If you really want to go down that route, we're not going to limit you to what application you can use it for. You have the choice. You can make a really horribly expensive eco shitbox if you like to. So yes, this is the setup that we have for the turbos. Quite simple, but it is compatible to not only the natural aspirated turbocharger, sequential turbochargers, but also combined with superchargers, because one stage, the first stage, can be a supercharger. And the second stage can then be a turbo, variable geometry and ball bearing, for instance. Yeah, so this is very versatile and doesn't even need that much space in the UI. Isn't that pretty? Just before starting recording this video, I was checking out the last one because it has been such a long time since then. I also forgot what I was talking about there. So yes, we do have the fuel availabilities now actually implemented. And it turns out that this table is quite useful when you're just setting it up. So in here you would instantly go like, okay, I'm on premium 95, check the row for 95, unleaded, and you see like, yeah, okay, Ahana is a little down there, but the rest is looking good, so do I really want to sell there? Maybe, maybe not. So it's very easy to make, base your decisions on this. Oof. How about the variable intake on a V16? Oh, compact shitbox. Yeah. Wow. That's very bendy. Ooh, those runners are long. Alright, now another little thing I wanted to show you, with still very hot engine parts being around, is this new little side panel. I think I mentioned it before, but let me tell you a little bit more about it and why it is there and why it is useful. If we go to, for instance, over here, and let's say we are not done with the car yet. We have yet to complete all the tabs of design choices. So what this little thing is doing is summing up for you. Ignore this column's naming there. It's weird. So what you're going to see here is the engineering time, production units, and material costs that this section of design incurs, and how that is related to the other sections. So for the engineering time, it is building this complex vector sum thing and tells you, oh wow, okay, you are on this tab, this is actually using 60% of your overall engineering time. So while you are designing, you're keeping go away, tooltip, go away. You're keeping track of how much engineering time you're adding, how much production units you're adding, and how much material cost you're adding to this current build of yours. And you can base some of the decisions on that while you are still designing. So not just after the fact. And this one, of course, is a little bit covered once the graphs and everything pops up. So there are none there, but yes. So this is a little tool that helps you guide your design process, and there will be a comparison in it too, because especially in campaign, you will be having a target demographic set before you start designing your car. And it will be able to compare to an average competitor, and you can see how much you are building up towards reaching that or going beyond it, so that you have a nice little anchor point in there that can potentially help you with a whoops, yeah, that wasn't so great to pull the quality slider to 15. Was it ever? I just asked the AI to build us a supercar. And yes, this is coming back to sandbox mode as well. The AI engine builder and the AI car builder is coming back, so that you just can ask the AI for a certain country and year to design you a certain car fitting to a demographic. What I would like to talk about next is the side stats panel that we talked about at length in the last little dev update, with the getting rid of competitiveness as that singular value you're optimizing for, and instead replacing it with something that is making some more sense, or not necessarily more sense, because the competitiveness did make sense, but it was terrible for gameplay. So we have that side stats panel implemented, and it is working as intended with for the meta, as you are now actually focusing on the stats at hand instead of that magical value. And what I want to show you is how we are, how it plays a little bit. So first, let's take a look at what we are seeing here. So if you don't have a demographic selected, then you're just seeing your stats as per usual. If you have a target demographic selected, then you see where you are at with your stats compared to your competitors. That is your stat, the blue bar, compared to the competitor's stat, which is the yellow bar. But it's also telling you it in here, that drivability, the average drivability of your top 3 competitors in that segment, or the top 3 selling competitors in that segment, have an average drivability of 35.7, and that is for that year you are in, and so on. The current available on market cars do have that stat. So, or rather none of them has, probably, but that is the average. Then you also see that, yes, while the demographic desires a lot more sportiness, which is the white line, they actually no one gets close to to actually giving it to them. As you see, the yellow bar here is even lower than our blue bar. It might be a little difficult to see, but I think you're getting it there. So yes, the average competitor stat here is 11.4, while we are sitting at 16.7. So we are outdoing our competitors in there, and it's still not quite enough from the perspective of the buyers. With comfort being broken at 0 right now, I can't really contest any of that, but fortunately it is as broken for the competitors too. So this is giving you a bit of an overview of where you're lacking versus your competitors, but also where your balance is sitting versus what the demographics actually are expecting of you. And of course, any special stats that they are requiring that are not listed in here, they are found down here at the bottom, which is also really handy and new, of course, but we talked about that last time. Then you see the following here. That is the coloring, or rather, yeah, the coloring is how desirable they are compared to your top 3 competitors. So that is not too great down here, but the profile of the car is somewhat fitting, at least. That is the transparency you see here. So these are completely grayed out, because the profile is completely off. If all of that is already fully working, I don't know. I assume not, but the basics are all in here now. And yeah, so let's try to optimize this car a little bit. Oh, this is a good example of it already being quite helpful. So first thing I did was, oh yeah, panel material steel. Nah, let's switch over to aluminium. And boom, oh, it turned yellow. Why is that? Let's take a look. Desirability penalties. One of those bars, oh well, we should see a yellow one, which we don't, so that's a bug. You should be seeing a red one and a yellow one there at the side, which is the highest severity of the desirability penalties should be listed here. Up to 3, we made it wide, a lot wider, so that it is much easier to see what is going on. And we noticed that you rarely need more than 3 anyway. So yes, the penalties are listed there, and what I was noticing here is, oh, low safety. Okay, that's probably because the car is so light that it gets squashed by everything. And now if we go to some finer tuning, let's say we want to get up to sportiness a little bit, then you would be looking at the actual sportiness and trying to like push that up instead of looking at competitiveness. Because you know, yeah, we are green already. That is, green means good. How good? Well, it doesn't really matter because this thing is going to sell. Did I mention that we have this list in now? Maybe it was in there last time. I don't think it was though. We have a full list of morphs now, so you can manually set the morphs via a slider. Oh, this still works, of course. If you turn it on, then you can drag around via the normal mode that you all are familiar with. But also, you always have access to these sliders, which are just the normal morphs, but you can also set your value right there. So that makes it easy for those more modern car bodies that have been recently added to the game and that will be added to the game, where there are loads of morphs and you maybe even can't reach all of them, or they are a little small or being overlapping and just nasty to handle. This list gives you full control over that. What I found while playtesting this a bit is what really helps is the always having the direct comparison to your competitors on screen whenever you like while tuning your car. So for instance here we see that, oh yeah, we are just slightly above the average of the drivability and we are way beyond what the competitors can muster in terms of the sportiness. And we are still below that desired sportiness that the demographic would like to see. Well, in 1946 that is very much expected. One of the things that are now fully implemented are the optimize weight and weight distribution sliders. So as this is a sport car, I can always just save a little bit of weight there and then probably drag this to the rear. And of course you are getting the weight distribution right there as well in the tooltip so that you are not flying blind. And one thing that you also see, which is quite handy, is that the transparency of this demographic drastically changes as we get closer to this desired profile. So when we set it to comfort here, just a preset, this I'm just using as an illustration tool because the difference in stats is so large for so little clicks required. So here you can see that, yeah, it is desirable in there, mostly, but it is quite dim. And it is quite dim because our scoring profile doesn't really match that demographic. So when we go from comfort to normal, you see that it's getting a bit brighter, then to sport even brighter, then race there, boom, yes, almost fully solid, because the only thing that is now not matching is that comfort stat that isn't working. This is probably a sight that you are not going to see once this is all done, because the competitors at the moment are quite broken themselves. So yeah, you probably won't see all green. And now that we have taken a look at all that, I want to give you one final thing on the way, which is mostly affecting campaign, but it will also be in sandbox. And I think this will be quite appreciated in both camps. And that is a complete redesign of the market screen, which is giving you a lot more information. So currently it is looking like this and it's completely broken. And that is to be expected because we are in the midst of implementing this. But I do have a design ready for this, so let me just put that here in the lower part. And that is, of course, just a little draft, but based on that I can explain what's going on, or what is supposed to be going on. I'm going to talk you through what this does in campaign mode and then how that is changing for Sandbox. So let's take a look at the full picture first. Alright, so what you see is that you can set a price in this tab for the car that you're currently working on, but also all the other cars, all the other trims that are part of this model of this facelift. Why is that needed, Kirob? Simple answer is because previously we had this big issue with design of automation that you needed to go through all the way to the end with setting up a car project before you could get a price for the car. And only then, after doing all the things, which could take like up to half an hour, first then you know if your project is going to be viable or not. And then you had to circle back and do a few loops of iterations in order to get it right. And worst case scenario, you have to start over. So that is not a very user-friendly kind of setup or flow. So what we are doing here now is that at the end of the designer, you are already getting the opportunity to set a reasonable price. A reasonable price would, for instance, be the average budget of the demographic. That would allow about 50% of the people in the demographic to afford your car. And that's probably quite a few people. Also, when you set it around 50%, you won't incur any pleb penalties. That was the thing, that plebs are able to afford your sports car, which would drastically lower the desirability of the car, because who wants to drive a pleb car? So yes, very, very handy. So you see this list of trims in your facelift. You can set the pricing for each trim, and you see with the blue bar and where you have the target demographic there at the bottom, about in the middle of the UI. You see the affordability in those demographics for that price. Then you see how many cars you would be able to sell at that price in the current market. And that is assuming a certain current average awareness, or rather, it is actually going through a sales calculation and gives you the accurate number of sales that you would have with this car, with these stats, or with these cars rather, with these stats, and just infinite production. So you're not limited by production, as if there was no factory attached to it, but you have that sales price. What is also given in the table is how this number changes with awareness, because awareness can change pretty quickly as you do marketing and such. So if you are selling into a brand new demographic, you would maybe expect that, those numbers would be rising pretty quickly. So you get a better estimate of that. And then if you had 100% awareness, if everyone knew about your company, how many sales would you be getting then? So this will be making campaign play especially so much easier, in that before you even go to your factory the first time, you know what you can expect in terms of sales if you set a reasonable price for your car and you actually can make a profit at that price point. Then there are various modes of visualization here. You can, first of all, you can select the model view, or model mode, which is all the way to the left here. The two mode buttons there. The top one, the top big button, is going to be selecting your model and facelift you want to take a look at. Then there is the model mode button, which basically is just looking at the trims within that model, or within that facelift, in isolation. No other company cars from your company are being considered in that. So you're not competing against trims in your own company in that mode. The one below that would be allowing you to set it such that you are actually competing against current trims of your company. All the way to the right, you have different visualization modes, and this is where it gets a little bit mind-blowing for what we plan for a change here. Okay, you have the 60 tiles of the markets. So wouldn't it be nice if you could see how much each trim is selling into each one of those? And that is exactly what this is going to do. So we are not going to show you number hell anymore, but we do have this neat little feature, which is a pie chart. And we can transform this table, this big tiles table that you see kind of broken here right now, into just a title of the demographic and then an adequately sized little pie chart, which scales in size depending on how many sales you get in there, but also splits up the segments of the pie according to which of the trims you're selling into that market. So you will see how much overlap you have in the various markets. And what it also will do is to fade out the demographics you're not actually selling to. So, or performing in rather. So it will do the same stuff as for the side panel, which you have here for the side panel demographics, but it will do so on the markets tab with these tiles. So the less suitable the car is, and the worse performing it is, the more faded out it will be, and it will take the best out of your lineup in there. So you won't see this massive table of everything in there with all the 60 pie charts, but rather only the ones that actually matter. And what you also see is a bit of overlap compared to your own model that you're currently looking at, which is like in model mode. You would see that you have 6 trims, and then right next to the car sales data, right below this facelift status, I can't point my mouse there because well, this is just overlaid in post. You would see that this brighter blue color is the sales that are unique to that trim. So how much that trim adds to your complete sales. If there's nothing blue in there for that trim that you have selected, then that means that, that trim doesn't add anything. You can do the same thing versus other models, which is, and all company trims, which is the dark blue bar there and so on. But all that would have to be explained in way more detail, and we will need very good tooltips to get this all straight. But this is an extremely powerful little panel, and it would be available on all levels. It would be available in here, in design, where you by default have then selected the current model that you're working on. While if you are in the company hub, then you drop down the markets tab, it would have the same UI. And you would be able to choose a model if you like, or get the old view that you're familiar with already. And then just choose a model there and select a trim to only see that trim's sales and so on. So really powerful stuff and very adaptable to the situation. And we will have that pretty much everywhere. And that includes sandbox, like I mentioned. So in sandbox mode, and the thing that we can do is that we are assuming that a facelift of your car is, we have a model of your car, and a facelift will be all trims that have the same design year are part of the same facelift. And from there we go and just assume 100% awareness for your company and all the market demographics, and we can make a calculation based on the prices that you set. So I think that will drastically help sandbox-only players to be familiarized a bit more with campaign play and how you make good cars for campaign. Because here you can then clearly see that, you would be selling X number of cars into these segments in this year, into these regions. I'm kind of wanting to do that now, wouldn't you? Maybe. But at least I hope some people will be picking up campaign once it is a bit more playable. But because, we are well aware that it currently is not really. Alright, final thing you probably want to know, but when is it coming out, Killrob? And I'm sorry to tell you that yes, there is bad news in that regard. We are not going to make it to this month end. some things have taken quite a bit longer than expected, but also they are becoming quite awesome. So I'm not too worried about that, because I know you're patient. You have been waiting for 10 years. You can wait another month extra or so. So yes, not this month, unfortunately. But progress is being made, and some of the big features are, or most of the big features are now in. Apart from this panel, this new panel, that is probably one of the last bigger features. We also lost some time for that new patch that was coming out to BeamNG, and that was a big update to how the materials work. That was, I think, 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks of work on the back end there. Yes, but that will also see bigger benefits for the upcoming version. We're not able to quite get everything in there for 4.1.20, which is being released as I'm releasing this little dev update. A few little fixes more in there, but unfortunately we can't really fix it all up for that old build, because we've moved on so far that it's just being, yeah, it's outdated already. We rather want to make it right for 4.2 than kind of squeezing it in there for 4.1 artificially and causing double work. Ah yes, another little side note here. Our little side project, the Cyclist Tactics, is coming out on the 29th of July, and I wanted to address that, as some of you might be cynical about that and saying like, oh, automation is delayed, or 4.2 is delayed, and the Cyclist is coming out. That must be because we have spent our resources on the Cyclist Tactics instead of automation. And I want to assure you that that is not the case. I have been working on automation all the time, and there has not been a single point in the last few months, and not before then either, really, where automation had to wait on me to get something done before implementation could continue. That means no delay has been caused by the Cyclist Tactics, which I'm quite proud of that has worked. That means that I had to work 50 to 60 hours the last few months straight, but that also means that you are not seeing delays in automation just because I had the pleasure of going out and doing another project. Just to assure you that that is all in order and as it should be, because we don't want to screw you over. Automation is my highest priority. And then, of course, also just a little side note there once again, if you haven't checked it out yet, there is a playable demo out, and if that might be down your alley, well, consider it. So where do we go from here? Well, that's a fair question. We are continuing down the massive to-do list for this update, and what an update it is. It's crazy. So much good stuff in there. Still many more balanced things to do, and I'm going to keep you updated in that regard, what is coming in, and the next little dev update should hold quite a few nice things once again for me to show you. And until then, I will just say that we are well more than a month off release still. And I'm going to be able to give you a closer estimate once we hit that next little dev update, which I promised would be within the next month. Or let's say 4 weeks from now. Alright, I hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time.